Hello, welcome to the VR video tour of the darkroom. If this doesn't work on the embed, you might try the YouTube link underneath, but you should be able to click in the middle of this video and kind of drag and move around. If you do that right now, you can kind of look behind you and see that the room is kind of in shambles, but also cleaner because I'm filming this over the summer. Throughout the tour, you can kind of look around. A lot of the time, I'll stay right up front, and you can just kind of look forward or whatever. Here's the darkroom. Before we even go in, I do want to point out over here the eye wash station. It is, if you exit the darkroom, it's this sink right here. So if you do need to use it, I'll probably at the end of the video show how that works and or demonstrate in class. Anytime you enter the darkroom, you have to be mindful of the proper way to enter. There is this blackout curtain thing, and you're going to have to let people know you're coming in. The simple way to do that is to shout, "I'm coming in," and see if anyone says anything like, "No, don't come in, I'm coming out." If people are coming out, they have the right of way. You let them come out. Assuming no one shouts back, what you're going to do is you're going to open up this curtain, and right under here is a door. So I'm going to bring you with me here. This might be a little awkward, hopefully not nauseating. You go under the curtain, and then you kind of close the curtain behind you like this. Now, normally there won't be any light in here. If you look above you, I left the top of this open so that you could see while I'm filming. Basically, at that point, though, you just open the door and then slide in. And when you do that, the lights will not be on in this room. Hence the term dark room. It's generally pretty dark in here. It's not pitch black, as you may see in a second. Once you're in, you're not actually in the dark room yet. You're just in this like sort of early chamber, kind of like an airlock. This is just extra measures designed to make sure that light doesn't leak in. At this point, there's another set of curtains, and this one opens in the middle. So remember, the first one, you're going to kind of go in like to the left. This one, you're going to go into the middle. I'll go ahead and plop this right here. And that should be a pretty good, yeah, right there. I may end up on the seam of this video at a few points, especially if I'm a little closer to the camera. Once you're in this part, you're in the darkroom. And part of the reason for doing a tour is so that you can see how everything is with the lights on. Because once again, it's not pitch black in here, but it's going to be pretty dark. This is going to be experimental, and I'm only going to do this for a second because I'm not sure how well the camera is going to pick things up. But I'm going to run back over here and turn the light off. And you may be able to see, like that, you may be able to see that, again, it's not pitch black. There is red light. And the red light is primarily focused on these chemical stations, 1, 2, and 3. And then over here we have the loading station. Just to make sure the camera can see everything, and therefore you can, I'm going to go ahead and turn the lights back on over here. It is worth noting that you would not want to have any light of any kind on in here. So you don't want to get confused and run back in there and turn the light on or something like that. If you bring your phone in here, make sure that your phone is like screen side in your pocket and that you do not check your phone at all. Be mindful of the time and check it before you come in. Every time you come in the darkroom, you should bring your camera with you. You're either going to have it to load and or have it to unload and develop your photograph. When you come in, you're going to come over to the loading station, which is right here. There will be a black bag with paper inside it that's pre-cut into like small squares or rectangles about this size. That paper is on top of a small paper cutter. Never touch the paper cutter, ever, ever, ever. The paper cutter is just there for me to cut paper. I'll usually overcut, but if there is, for some reason, not enough paper, just tell me, I'll come in and cut some more. When you go to load your camera, this might be a little tricky. I'll put it right at the front. What you're going to do is you're going to open up the camera. You're going to take the piece of paper and you're going to figure out which is the shiny side. Even with the lights off, with those red lights, you should be able to kind of go like this and find that it will like catch a glint of light every once in a while on the shiny side. The dull side, that will never happen. Another way to check that is to pretend you are a villain and you're twirling your mustache and you're going like this. Right now my finger is sticking and my thumb is kind of sliding freely. If I turn it the other way, my finger slides and my thumb sticks. The stickier side is the shiny side, is the yummy chemical side. Once you have that, you are going to take a silver Sharpie. There are Sharpies here and tape here. On the dull side, you are going to write your name, first and last, Derek Ehlen. Then you're going to put the cap back on the marker and put the marker back where it goes. I shouldn't have to say that, but believe me, I do. Then you're going to tear off a piece of tape, loop the tape, stick it right where you just wrote your name, and then very important, you have to stick this inside here in the exact right spot. So right here, we've probably talked about this in class, right here is the pinhole, the little piece of a pop can with the hole poked in it. So if you put the shutter over top of the pinhole, and in this case, I'm just going to point the inside of this towards you, the pinhole is up top, and therefore the paper, the shiny side of the paper, should go inside the camera directly across from the pinhole. That way, when the pinhole is opened, when you're actually outside taking your picture, light will enter the pinhole, cross through it, and project onto the back wall of the camera. At that point, you close up the camera, and you exit the darkroom, remembering to say, I'm coming out, as you exit the darkroom. Once you've taken your picture, and again, those steps are covered in class, on the handouts, and so on. Once you've taken your picture, your first exposure, you're going to bring the camera back in here. I didn't talk about, proper darkroom entry other than acknowledging that you want to announce you're coming in. But as you can see, it's pretty dark in here, so it's going to take a little bit of time for your eyes to adjust. Usually what people should do, and if you kind of follow me over this way, you're going to enter the darkroom right through here, and then what most people will do is kind of sidle over this way. There is some super emergency eye wash stuff over here. Be mindful of that, try not to bump it off the wall, but that might be kind of difficult. So most people just kind of sidle over to this area because nothing's really happening over here. This is kind of the no person's land. Might give it 20 or 30 seconds for your eyes to adjust. At first it'll just look like a red blur. Eventually you'll be able to see where people are. The point where you can see who people are is probably the point where it's like, okay, I think I'm good, I'm ready to go. At that point you're going to walk over to here. And this is step 1, step 2, and step 3. And these are the 3 chemicals that you're going to use. It's worth noting that there is a 4th chemical that I will use, which is pretty much just water. So after you have finished step 3, at the end of the day or halfway through the day, I will take everything out of the 3rd chemical and put it in a water bath and kind of run water on it overnight. And then the next day, you'll be able to handle your pictures. In other words, you don't really want to handle your pictures at all other than putting it into the chemicals. Once it's in the chemicals, don't touch them. It's important to be mindful of the fact that the chemicals are not your friends. But you don't have to be terrified of them. You should respect but not fear them. So we don't have a huge ventilation hood or anything in here, but we're also not using very much chemicals. And there is some ventilation if you look right above you. That's not really a big issue. As far as smell, you probably will notice a smell. Most of the smell is stop bath, and the stop bath, you wouldn't want to drink it, but it's not going to hurt you to smell that. It's going to just kind of smell like vinegar, or some people say like coloring Easter eggs, which is vinegar. Step 1 is the developer. You're going to open up your camera. You're going to take the picture out of it. You might as well take the loop of tape off the back and just stick it back in there so you can use it again. It's a good idea to put the lid back on your camera and to just hold the camera at all times. At the end of the school day, I'll find random lids, random cameras all over the place. So you want to be responsible for your camera. You're going to take your picture, you're going to drop it into the developer, and if the timer isn't already running, you can reach up and set the timer. There's a little prong on one of the hands that kind of sticks forward. You can just grab that and set it all the way to, let's say, 59, you're not going to be able to set that timer for yourself. You're going to have to just contend with wherever it's at. So if it's at 59, the step 1 developer says 2 minutes, so you know that 2 minutes after that, 57, it's time for your thing to come out. Now, while it's in the developer, it doesn't really matter if it's face up or face down, because you should be doing what's called agitating, or someone who is at the developer station should be agitating, which simply means poking it around and moving it so that all of the chemical goodness, which should be pretty well mixed anyway, is getting into all of the paper. So it doesn't matter face up or face down. It is worth noting that if 14 other people have their paper in there at the same time you do, face down's probably better, because that way you can see your name and it's easier to fish yours out. Now, step 1, there are some other instructions on here, and this isn't going to go away, but it's important to know that step 1, as it says here, is the moment of truth. That means that while the other chemicals are important and what they do is essential, step 1 is the only one that is going to change the paper in a way that you can immediately see. In other words, after 2 minutes, you're going to be able to tell if your exposure worked or not. So at that point, you fish your paper out of there. You kind of drizzle it off a little bit, try not to get it all over the place, and then you look at it. And by look at it, I simply mean you're going to put it under the red light. You're not taking it out into the room or showing it to me or anything like that. As far as rating your exposure, it's an estimate, and I don't hold you to that estimate. I trust your ability to tell if it's too light, too dark, or somewhere around just right. So that's what you're looking at. Now, if it is a little too light or a little too dark, or it's perfect, then you definitely go on to the next step. It doesn't have to be perfect for you to go on to the next step. But if it is solid black, meaning it was overexposed, or if it's pure white, which means it's underexposed, then there's really no reason for you to put it through the other steps, because again, they're not going to change it in a way that you can see. So if it's solid black or solid white, you drizzle it off and drop it into the trash right here. Trash. Drop it there. If it did work at all, even if it's a little too light or a little too dark, you're going to go ahead and finish processing it, which means you're going to take it, you're going to drop it into the stop bath. Stop bath is the second chemical. It's worth noting that these tongs here say developer on them, and therefore they are for the developer. So